Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. Couple number ones up here this week, and a returning title from one of our absolute favorite writers. This creative team has been just perfect on this book so far. So let's dive in.
Yeah, so my pick this week is, shocker to no one, New Gods issue 3, continuing this brand new epic that they're telling. And this issue in particular is very interesting because we kind of get, so last issue we were introduced to these new bad guys, the Hctaw, I believe they're called.
Yeah.
And we kind of get to learn more about, like, not exactly like their origins, but like the origins of like what came before them. We get to learn, because like obviously the whole thing with New Gods, they're the fourth world.
Yep.
They're what happened when
that implies there are 3 previous.
Yeah, and we've had some of that because like we've had like some stuff with like the third world with what's Darkseid's dad's name, like Yuga Khan, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and even some other recent stuff with a lot of Phil Kenny Johnson. He's been writing stuff about like the first world with Olgrin. But this issue we get to learn about the second world, which I don't think is anything they've ever really like touched on before.
It's really interesting. I'm liking what Ram V is doing here.
Yeah, we get to meet like some of the old gods from that time period and find out like how what happened with them and like the end of the second world kind of led to the creation of the Hctaw, kind of led to like what's going on with this new god that has appeared on Earth. And it's really cool because so Evan Cagle continues to do like all the art for like the main like sequences. So we get some cool scenes with Mr. Miracle and Barda. We get to see the Hctaw invade Apocalypse. But then for all these scenes kind of detailing the second world, we've got, let me double check, make sure I've got the artist's name here right. Riccardo Federici, who's done a bunch of stuff for DC in the past.
Yeah, I feel like that name came up recently in something else that we did.
Yeah, he's done, speaking of Johnson, a bunch of I think it was called like the Black Spire Chronicles, that very kind of like sword and sorcery series that they did a couple years back. He's done some other stuff. He was on Detective for a bit. He's done some other Batman things. But it continues.
Gorgeous. Gorgeous work.
Yeah, like it continues. He's trying to bring in like other little side arts to these kind of like little bits, kind of like detailing other aspects of the story. And yeah, like absolutely gorgeous. Really brings this like dark and kind of like gothic feeling to this world, which I really hope they get more into, because there's all kinds of like little things they'll drop. Like one of my things we were talking about, we love how they kind of play on like existing mythologies and religions with New Gods. So like second world, they've got it's not quite Ragnarok, it's like Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And it's like it's super cool, like little stuff like that.
It is such a cool combination of, because the human storytelling is, it has consistent threads throughout all different types of civilizations throughout human history. And so to see kind of the different, flavors, I guess, of that, they're the same basic story structures, but, with different historical and cultural bends to them. It's really cool to see that all kind of mixed up together. It again, if you didn't read Rare Flavors, that is a great primer book for this New Gods, because
this and These Savage Shores, I'd say, are like two of his works that are really good primers for this. But like again, it's because like you look at the original New Gods, at the core of it, it was Kirby like doing this whole mishmash of like Nordic mythology. You've got like some Judeo-Christian stuff in there, but it's all in this like very like pulpy sci-fi like skin. And it's all here, but then there's other elements of various other like religions and mythologies from like across the spectrum that are like being interwoven.
Yeah.
There's
some reference to like Mayan or Aztec.
You've got stuff from like Hindu with like the Kali Yuga. There's all kinds of like cool stuff in there that much in the same way, like with a lot of stuff when it comes to writing, like it's put in a way where like you don't have to really like fully like understand or know, but it also does create like an off ramp for you to like learn and experience these new things.
Yeah, and you really don't have to have much knowledge.
You don't need to be a
gods
theologian
or any world religion or anything, because it's just a super fun story. And again, it's using that material as kind of a jumping off point. It's not really necessary for the story at hand here.
Yeah. And anyway, we talked about Federici for the kind of flashback stuff, his art being great. Kale continues to kill it. There's this awesome double page spread right at the beginning of of Keen and Mantis fighting in front of this huge army. It's super cool.
Yeah.
And also can just capture the little moments. Like there's Oberon's expression in a couple panels is so funny because he's just like, he's just kind of like poking fun at them.
Yeah. Well, and you boys are in trouble. That panel for me in particular.
That was great.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, the one where we find out that they're in trouble, but the smirk was so good.
No, yeah, like I continues to, and no small feat, be my favorite DC book because like they've got a bunch of good stuff coming out.
They really do.
But like the fact that this one was able to like keep being up there. I really don't see you dropping off anytime soon.
No.
Like we'll see what happens next month when Absolute Martian Manhunter comes out. Might have a contender.
Ooh, yeah. Well, and speaking along those lines, we've got an Absolute Flash preview in the back of DC this week,
which is cool because they didn't do that with the other three books. So I like that they're giving little tastes to people like what some of these other Absolute books are going to be.
I thought they did with Absolute Wonder Woman, but I guess I could be totally wrong.
They remember they put out like a bunch of like preview pages online, but I don't think they did any of the like stuff in the books.
Yeah, well,
but
my brain is oatmeal, so that tracks.
But so that's another one that like spoiler alert probably will be on here when it comes out.
It's Wally, and I love the way that they're depicting Wally. It's very cool, Wally.
Yes.
Like I'm enjoying it. So yeah. All right, very cool.
So hey, that's a number 3. Let's have a number 1.
Yeah. So I went with Thunderbolt's Doomstrike number 1. Lansing and Kelly have been a writing duo that I have been enjoying. And this is kind of very much their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
The Bucky Barnes, Thunderboltsy, taking on fascists, whatever. Okay, so let's back up to One World Under Doom, number 1. And the one, and we picked that one, or I picked that one, I think.
Yeah, it was up here because it was good.
The one criticism that I had was, is Doom being evil enough early enough in this book? Is he too relatable? Does it seem like somebody could argue like, well, yeah, he's not doing things the right way, but can you argue with the end results that he's working towards? And Doom certainly is capable of great things, terrible things, but great things. But here we see behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And oh my God, does it hit home. Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you'll get it, don't
when
worry.
you get it, you'll get it. And I just really like how Bucky's point of view is how we're seeing that. Because, we already had the Avengers like, well, it's Doom. This has got to be terrible. So we've got to stand up against him. And they kind of rush in and it ends up being dumb. And Doom's always 5 steps ahead of everybody. Well, Doom is also 5 steps ahead of everybody in this book. But Bucky is not going to do a full frontal assault like the Avengers are going to. He's going to try to work behind the scenes. He's going to keep his team small and tight, and he's had experience with this type of thing before. So how's that going to go? Well, it's a really good story. And we also get to see Bucky interacting with characters that I really like. So there's Contessa, the life model decoy Contessa. There's Songbird, who Allison and I last night at Close were talking about. Songbird does not get enough exposure in the Marvel 616 universe.
We were talking about that beforehand too. Like a character that anytime she shows up, I'm always happy to see her. Really wish she was in more books.
So that original Thunderbolts run, and then how that kind of ran into the early 2000s Thunderbolts, and then it turned into Dark Avengers. She was so great through all of that stuff, and you're seeing most of those books kind of from her point of view, and then they just drop her. Oh man. Yeah, so I am very excited to see her. Hope that she continues to have a larger role, and then Black Widow, of course. And I just really... sometimes, especially in Marvel, it feels like a lot of the romantic relationships seem kind of forced. This is one of Bucky and
spoiler
Black
if you
Widow.
haven't been reading them for years now.
Yeah, for the last 20 years. It's one of those where who else could you possibly relate to? Yeah. Right? And be able to let your guard down and let them in, other than two people who have so much red on their ledger, to borrow from the MCU. It just makes a lot of sense. And there's kind of there's a tender moment in here where they don't overemphasize it. It just kind of happens, and you go, I get it. I get it. It makes sense. They're just two people who really have been through terrible, terrible things. Turns out, being forced to be an assassin is awful. Yeah. Anyway, so long story short, and then we've got Bianchi on art on this, and I'm trying to remember what else we've seen Tommaso Bianchi on.
The name rings a bell. I definitely, and I recognize the style.
Yeah, for sure. Great Doctor Doom artist. Doctor Doom looks so good, and Doom is one of those where you either get him right or you don't, because the pointy nose and the weird mouth thing and getting the eyes just right, it's difficult.
Oh yeah.
And I think Kirby had that ability to make kind of these weird over the top characters look really cool sometimes. There were other times, there were other times where whatever he came up with just ended up looking goony and whatever, or didn't age well. But Doom is just one of those just classic designs. But it's hard to get him right. For modern artists, I think Chris Samnee does an amazing job.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be fair, Chris Samnee does amazing everything. So.
Yep, almost another book that I picked was his this week. But anyway, so I highly recommend this, especially if you read One World Under Doom. A lot of times I don't like the connecting ancillary books for those big events or whatever. This one I think is going to have a lot of really good information. It's Lansing and Kelly doing Thunderbolts. Just pick it up, it's good.
And that's the thing too, because with a lot of times with tie-in books, it's just here's just a book. It's not really they're just kind of doing it just to put it out there. Whereas this is
give us your $5.
Whereas this is it's very much its own thing. It's still also a continuation of their previous work with Thunderbolts, with Captain America. It feels like this is a story that they would have wanted to tell anyways. Yeah. And it's just the perfect place to do it.
Right. And it's not one of those throwaway creative teams we'll give these people a try and see if they're any good. Because a lot of times in those side books, you end up getting...
Which is, where a lot of these people get to prove themselves. Yeah, but it's also they know what they're getting into. Right. It's a foot in the door kind of
Whereas this is full on, Captain America, Thunderbolts, they've got the chops. Yeah. For sure. All right.
Speaking of people who got the chops.
Oh my gosh. So, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Intro. Sorry, I thought you were... Sorry.
No.
Zatanna number 1.
Yay! Yeah. So, I really, really enjoyed the Zatanna mini.
That we had Bring Down the House.
Bring Down the House, Very, very good.
Oh, yeah.
But... for anybody who's worried that they had to read that is just a separate reality.
It's its own little black label
pocket
book.
Universe.
This is her main universe, just kind of doing her thing. She's superhero. She's all in on it. But she's also still doing her magic stuff. She's got this whole new show she's setting up, and then things happen.
So we knew that visually this was going to be an amazing book.
Oh yeah,
it was going to be gorgeous.
Yeah.
What we didn't know
was that narratively it was also going to be pretty fun.
Who knew Jamal Campbell was such a good writer?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar, if you've been reading Superman since its most recent relaunch, Jamal Campbell was the main artist for a good chunk of that.
Yeah.
And honestly, just off of that alone, kind of in my like top 10 Superman artists now. Like, dude just like is so good at like making him feel like this like larger than life thing, but also like someone that you can just like actually talk to.
Right. People talk about Superman and they're like, oh, he's OP, he's boring, he's just the Boy Scout, whatever. But there's so much nuance to Superman, and I think particularly visually, he's a challenging character to get right. I think it's very tough, and yeah, Campbell did it great. Zatanna, I think because, magic and just kind of her whole aesthetic, but then the world that she lives in, it's challenging, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so much happening on these pages. There were times where I was just staring at some of the really small panels going, good God, how much time did he spend on these tiny panels?
Well, and that's another thing, like the whole way this issue is laid out, like there's this cool kind of like double page bit, like kind of like right in the middle where it's her having a conversation with someone. It's so cool. Like she's like having to kind of like hop through dimensions at one point, and the way it's done is super fun. It's like visually like sumptuous.
It kind of, is it weird that it reminded me of Mario 64?
No, I can see. I get where you're coming from.
I get it. I thought it was super cool. So name drop. When Brent Schoonover was down here for his last visit, doing signings and commissions and so forth, we were talking about how when he came up, everything was still pencil and paper, and now everything is digital. And he was talking about how you can really get lost because you can zoom in as much as you want and put in as much detail as you want, but it ends up being printed like this big. And that's what I was looking at in some of these panels. Like, man, he spent a lot of time on a panel that is seriously like 2 inches by 1.5 inches. But it was part of getting lost because you kind of go through the looking glass, right? And you can get kind of lost in the nuance of that art. But yeah, super cool.
But again, like, because if you've been reading comics long enough, you've seen plenty of times where like a super talented artist takes their stab at writing, and there's a lot of times where it doesn't quite work out. There's a lot of times where it does, but it's not exactly the most even turnout. Here, this is a very good, for as far as I'm aware, like first time Campbell's ever like written like something for like a big comic.
I meant to do a dive on past work just to see, so that we sounded really smart, but I didn't get around to it. I read too much.
No, I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of stuff this week.
It's a good week.
I don't know. I may have mentioned this before with like Superman stuff. It's super cool because like because Campbell's one of those artists that I actually first became aware of before they even like worked in actual comics, back when they were just like posting like fan redesigns on DeviantArt.
Oh yeah.
And like, so to see him getting to like headline these like major books, to get to like write and draw his own like series, like it's super cool to like actually get to like chart someone's like rise like that, and it's so deserved here.
Jamal Campbell probably owes something to your fandom. I would think maybe a signed copy or something to the store would be in order. Just throwing that out there. Yeah. All right. Well, the whole setup here is that she's starting a show. She's got a group of entertainers, not just magicians, but entertainers in general, and they're going to be doing a residency basically in San Francisco.
Also, someone can correct us if I believe I remember seeing at some interview that like some of these characters are from some of her other runs, like some of like the Paul Dini run from like 15 years ago or something.
Oh,
like that.
Sure.
So it's like if anyone knows that, I mean, we can also look up after the video. But like, so that's a nice little deep cut if that's the case. But.
Yeah, very cool. So we've got this kind of cast of characters, and then magic-y stuff starts happening before they even get to their first show. They're just kind of doing their rehearsals and stuff, and they get sucked into a poster.
Yeah, it's like they're transported to like this astral plane where they have to like deal with a bunch of different like genre movie things. Yeah, and it's like super cool how they do that.
Yeah, and Lady White is a brand new character. Yes,
as far as I'm aware, and she's a fun one too.
Yeah, no idea why she has decided to show up and interact with this group of people. So that's going to be kind of the fun
like we
of
kind
the
of
series.
like we get a little bit of an answer, but it's one of those answers that just creates more questions.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. So it's a great, easy jumping on point.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need to know much of anything about the cast of characters. The premise for why they're all there is simple. It's easy to understand. You get enough of that kind of build up there, and then we get off into this magical adventure. So it's going to be very interesting. And it looks like somebody dies at the end of it. So
maybe.
the stakes might be high. So yeah, very cool. All right, well, these are all highly recommended.
Oh yes.
What was very close to making it to the table? Because cutting it down to 3 and really just a choice and a half a piece.
Like there's some weeks where it's like it's not too hard to like figure out like, oh, who's like top dog. There's other weeks where it's just like we actually have to sit here for a bit and like hem and haw over it.
Yeah, we sat here for a bit.
Oh yeah. But one that almost made it up here, issue 2 of Ultimate Wolverine came out this week.
So good.
We get a bit more of an insight into kind of like the goings on of Directorate X, kind of like the like inner workings of like some people aren't like happy with things, like there's maybe some discontent being sown. This is probably the most we've actually spent with like this version of like Colossus and his whole like cadre of characters.
Yeah, and Ileana, and they're jerks.
Like these are like so far, just by lack of not having done much, like Omega Red seems like the nicest of the 3 so far, which is an insane thing to say.
That is crazy, but it's absolutely accurate. We also get to see, this is maybe, it's weird because in this universe, the Maker is the one who's behind everything. We actually get a pretty reasonable Maker appearance in this, which
a very terrifying one
in hardly any of the other books.
I mean, to be fair,
he's sleeping.
Yeah, sleeping. Yeah,
he's in the Odin sleep.
Yeah. But yeah, so that came out was great. We also got a reprint of issue 1 in. So if you missed out on that, which a lot of people did because that sold out real quick.
We ordered so many copies. I should have known better, I guess. But who would have thought it would be? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So if you missed out before, definitely stop in now. If you want to make sure you do get issue 2, definitely stop in or contact us and let us know to have like it put on your poll.
Yep.
Like that's the best way to always make sure you do get something. Because we were talking about yesterday, like people that they come in and grab a book and they just like get so used to being able to grab it all the time that they think it's on their poll and hold and they miss it, and it's just like, well, that's what happens.
Yeah, and all it takes is a handful of other people to have their interest piqued and pick up that book that same week before you're able to come in. So yeah, help us help you.
Yes.
What else? Any other titles?
Let's see. Let me double check. Cause like again, there's a lot this week. Especially like if you're an X-Men fan, you're eating good this week. Cause like
so many X titles.
Almost all of them came out this week, including some new ones.
Yeah.
Weapon X-Men
is the only obvious one. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think that's like because you got Uncanny, you got NYX, like all kinds of stuff. But yeah, let me double check here. New High Republic book is out because they're kind of like getting into like the climax of that. There's a lot going on, so that's been really good. I don't know, anything for you guys?
Yeah, so we referenced earlier Chris Samnee and Mark Waid on Batman and Robin. That's continuing to be good. Old school Clayface. It's always great.
Looking forward to that movie.
Yeah, for sure. What else was I?
Again, yeah, like there's.
Oh, Amazing! I read Amazing.
Finally!
G.I. Joe!
G.I. Joe. That was
good.
Tom Riley. He's an artist that I wish we had more of him so we could draw more books because, God, is everything he draws just be gorgeous. And again, the coloring on the book too continues to be one of the easy highlights.
Yeah, the only thing that I don't understand is why are the Crimson Twins blonde all of a sudden? It's right. Am I missing something?
I think it was just the coloring in one of the pages, but
yeah, I don't know. I thought that in the first time they showed up too. I was like, their hair's kind of light. Not that I care, but they're European. They probably dyed there. It's probably frosted tips.
They're the Da Vinci twins or whatever those two guys are called. If you do or do not know what that is, I don't know what that says about any of us really.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's a reference anyone really gets anymore.
Nobody gets my reference. That's fine. Yeah, there's a ton of good stuff up here. For you Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fans, they just did a hardcover release of the kind of second era of the Mirage stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the
Oh,
I have it
boy.
here. Yeah. So it's the 93 to 95 stuff. And this has not been reprinted nearly as much as the other
I was gonna
Turtle
say.
stuff. Man, I'm trying to remember what the name of the main creator was. Because, it was when
The original creators? Or
Jim Lawson. Yeah.
Is the guy doing this, it looks like.
So it was after Eastman and Laird were they were enjoying the success of Turtles and tired of Turtles already.
Yeah.
So they were trying to just kind of run Mirage Studios instead. So they brought in a whole bunch of other creators. And so this is that era before they ended up moving the license to another publisher and what have you. So cool stuff there. I'm very excited to crack into a copy of that and read that. So all kinds of good stuff. Yeah, well, awesome. This is last week was all the reprints of the Absolute stuff, and I didn't want to forget to remind people that if you have been looking for early copies of Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman, we finally got some back issues for you to be able to get caught up on, and highly recommend because they have been so good so far.
So definitely make sure you come in and get them while they last.
Yep. And like Fritz said earlier, Ultimate Wolverine second printing of #1 is now available. So, all right, well, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share. And then stop on into your local comic shop and pick up some books and get yourself something to read. We will be back next week with more Pulp Picks and hopefully soon some big news that we've been teasing.
I was going to say, are we going to say anything more about that? Or
no, I've got a big. I have a big meeting today, so we'll see.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But I'm meeting with some people today, and that would be a big step towards this big announcement. So so stay tuned for that. Like I said, we will be back next week with more picks, and until then, enjoy the reading.
It is literally just the game show equivalent of this.